Hi guys. How y'all doing? Mic check, mic check. That's good. At least somebody showed up for the spreadsheet class. I was kind of worried. Last year I named the presentation Trust Trading in Trillions, which was a little bit more sensational, trying to pulling people into the trading side of EVEOnline. This year it's just hardcore spreadsheet masterclass, right? If you're here, then you're a typical EVE player probably. But you're also now you're locked in. Now you can't leave, and I'm going to take advantage of you. Some of you may know who I am. I'm Oz. I've been playing EVE since 2004, and I'm just really heavily into markets and trading. That's what I've been doing since 2004. Just building spreadsheets, trying to dominate the market, learning the game of EVEOnline with the goal in mind to then profit from it in the market. Right? And there's some other people out there doing that. You might have seen Eden Trade's presentation earlier, one of the more extreme examples of that. But in 2019, I started then streaming it. And so I started switching that entire game around, because starting in 2019, I started not hiding all the secrets for myself, but letting everyone in on the secrets and talking about them and building spreadsheets and essentially teaching other people to trade in EVEOnline. I also run other things on Twitch, like the Oz Tank. I hope a lot of you have seen that. That's the Shark Tank, but for EVEOnline, where Eden Trade and me and some other EVE trillionaires listen to pitches and then give away all our money, because my numbers just go up. I don't really do a lot of other things in EVEOnline, so my numbers just keep on going up. So I had to find a way to inject all that ISK back into the community, and that's my way of doing that. I've been an EVE partner since the launch of the program. My guides are used in the EVE Academy, and I also have a Discord server. If you're not on it, come join us. It's basically 6,000 trading nerds or people that are just generally interested in that play style, discussing EVEOnline. And this is what I'm more famous or infamous for, is the trading fund that I run. So what I do is I take investments from the EVEOnline community, and that's around. It was 4 trillion in July. We're closer to 5 trillion now. I try to get out of it, but people just keep giving me money. I don't know why. You guys are crazy. You guys are good. But I invest that money in JIDA. So just by managing that fund, I'm playing a heavy role also in influencing the markets in JIDA. So last time I talked about, this was last year, you can find this presentation out on YouTube. I talked about trust trading in trillions, and that was basically how I take those 4 trillion and how I invest them in the market, and the strategies associated with that. So this year, I want to do something different, and that is I want to talk about the different types of spreadsheets that are out there, the data sources that you can use, how to run a market spreadsheet effectively, and what I use them for. And don't worry, I'm not going to make this too niche, because I think that super niche, market trading playstyle is probably interest about maybe 1% of you. But I'm going to try to do it like I do on my stream, to make it so that even if you don't actively trade, or if you don't build your own spreadsheets, at least this will be helpful for your daily decisions that you make in EVEOnline, and I'll try to make it as relevant to your playstyle as possible. So let's start with the types of spreadsheets that there are. So first of all, the most simple spreadsheet that you can build in EVEOnline is the tracking spreadsheet, right? And that's basically how much money did I make today, for example, as a question that you're trying to answer. You're trying to look at your individual market orders, your profits, or maybe even for your corporation, you look at where's our ISK at, where can we get the data from to understand how much ISK we made today, this week, this month, this year. Right? The second thing you can do, and this is my favorite, and that is the market dashboard. So that's your Bloomberg terminal if you happen to work in finance or the markets in real life. That's your what is the market doing today? Where is the market moving to? What are the new things happening in the market today? And then 3, it's kind of like the opportunity identification. Like what are opportunities out there that I can find because I have a better spreadsheets than others, or because I gather data better than others to profit from it. So these are the 3 types of spreadsheets that we're going to talk about today. And one thing to understand is that the purpose of these spreadsheets will determine the data sources that you can use in EVEOnline. And I think, for EVEOnline, more so than other games, is I think more players of EVEOnline have had some sort of exposure about the data sources that you can use to pull data in. But still, I understand that a lot of you probably have never thought about these sources, or don't come into contact with these data sources at all. So I'm going to try to start at the bottom. First of all, what type of data sources can you use to build spreadsheets in EVEOnline? Most recently, a lot of you have seen the launch of the Excel add-in. So the Excel add-in is something very special. It's the first time that Microsoft Excel has done an add-in for a video game. I was fortunate enough to test it and to be on the live stream with the Microsoft Excel guys, and it was, it's awesome. It's very, very cool, and it's very Eve. It's very, very Eve to be the first game to be able to do that. So this gives us a lot of new opportunities. There's always been an API, so there's always been like a way to directly tap into the data of EVEOnline if you understand coding, or if you have some way of scripting code to get to that data. With the Excel add-in, you don't have to know that anymore, right? With the Excel add-in, as long as you understand the basics of Microsoft Excel, you can call data for your characters with formulas. You log into your character. You use a formula like market orders, and you can within seconds pull in all the market orders for your character. It's not only for market data though, you can pull it for all your assets. You can find your assets in the galaxy. You can look at how many of each ship type you have if you're doing fleet compositions, whatever. It's a very useful tool. We have things like adamforeve.eu. I hope a lot of you have used it and have not accidentally put in adamforeve.com. Right? It's a running joke on my stream, but don't do this now. Don't pull up your phones. You might get flagged on the Wi-Fi here. It's Adam for Eve. His name's not even Adam. I don't know why he called it that. But it's a guy named Ethan, and he really, if you're interested in market data, sometimes it looks ugly on the surface. Don't tell him I said that. It looks a little bit rough, but it's really the heart of market data and some other very, very, very useful data. So if you've never gone to that site and you play EVEOnline, I highly recommend you to go there, and he works on it very, very hard. So Adam for Eve is another one that is really useful. Jeev Assets, also one of my personal favorites. So this is a Java application. So as long as you install the Java runtime application in your environment on your computer, you can just run this, and it will, if you log into your account, it will pull all the data for your account, and it's just, you have to know no coding at all, and it's even represented in nice graphs. It's really it's as close to a perfect character overview sheet as you can get to. Fuzzwork is another one. A lot of you guys know Steve, who runs it. It's fantastic. It's not only a good LP store calculator if you're trying to buy things in LP stores, but he also opens up an API to access the market data, and it has a lot of useful things about it. Something that came out of our community, a guy named Mocam. I'm going to talk about this a lot later, because if you're building spreadsheets in EVEOnline, and if you have not used mocam.dk, then I highly recommend it, because this is the source for all the market history and everything that you thought was impossible to get to, and especially for things like I do, where I invest large sums of money and I need to understand where the market is, where the market's going. Mocam is where you want to go. One of my personal favorites is evecookbook.com. I know there's a lot of websites that allow you to calculate build cost for things in EVEOnline, but Eve Cookbook has the big advantage that you can't just go onto the website and say, I am in this station, I'm building this with these skills, with these blueprints. It also has an API, which is super helpful because you can literally go into Google Sheets and you can type in a formula to pull in the exact build cost for an item at a specific station for your character. So it's super useful what he's doing there. And then there's a ton more. So that's why I'm prefacing this by saying these are the tools that I use, and I'm sorry if I forgot some other tools that might be fantastic as well. If you think you know tools that are doing this, but in a better way, then I'm the first one that wants to know about it. So this is just to kind of set the stage for you all to to understand what is out there. Where can you get stuff? So let's jump into the first type of spreadsheet there is. And before we jump into that, this presentation is called Market Spreadsheet Masterclass, right? We just have 45 minutes. Just so, spoiler alert: there's no way I will teach you how to build a market spreadsheet if you know nothing, right? This is going to be to get you maybe interested in it, to maybe show you how it's not as daunting as it might feel. And if you want to dive in deeper, then come see me, come join our Discord, and we can, anyone can learn how to do this stuff if you're interested. So let's talk about the tracking sheet. So how much money did I make today, for example, or this month as kind of a slogan? The data we need for that is, one, we need the transactions, so your daily wallet transactions if you're trading on a character or in a corporation. The wallet balance helps, so what's going in and out of your wallet. Not only through market orders, there's other things that impact your wallet, right? And if you're trading with contracts, for example, then transactions aren't going to help you much. Your current market orders, so what are the buy and sell orders that you currently have out there? Because for a lot of people that are trading, that constitutes a lot of your assets or your invested capital. And then the current item price, and that's just a whole complicated matter on itself. So the way I've structured this presentation is I want to go through each of the categories of data sources that we have, so the original API, the Excel add-in, and various third-party tools, and kind of look at what can do which part of the spreadsheet building really well. And if you're looking at transactions, wallet balance, orders, there's really, you can pick your poison. There's really no difference. You can get this from the API directly. You can use the Excel add-in if you don't know coding. You can use third-party tools. Specifically Jeef Assets, as I mentioned, does this just really, really well, right? There's just it's not difficult to get these types of things at all. If you're completely new at this, I would recommend you do either the Excel add-in or Jeef Assets because it's the easiest. It doesn't require any coding. But they can all do it. Where this becomes interesting is if we're talking about current market price, because what's current market price? Right? That in itself is basically impossible to answer for EVEOnline, because are we talking JITA price? Are we talking the lowest sell order that is currently out there? Are we talking the lowest price averaged over the last week, month, maybe year? Are we talking about the percent price, which is the favorite favorite price of traders? So and what I mean by percent price is if it's the way that traders in EVEOnline answer that question of there is no right answer to the current price. And typically what we call the current price is the price of the top 5% sell orders in JITA. So if you were buying the top 5% of JITA, which is a significant market volume, the price of that. And what that does is it eliminates all the outliers if some idiot sells it way too low, right? And idiot is what I call him as a market trader. You guys can call him, a nice guy that is selling it very cheap. But to me, he's breaking my market, right? So the percent price is something that is very crucial to this tracking sheet. And so the The API only does this partially well, so that's why the less white, the worse the solution is. In case you haven't caught on to the Harvey balls, I used to be a consultant. So the API does this okay, but it doesn't do the percentage price, for example. You have to calculate that for yourself. The Excel add-in, similarly, so you cannot get the current price from it. You would have to get all of the current sell orders and then do your own calculations on a different sheet. And if you do that for 1,500 items, it gets kind of complicated. And so thankfully, we have third-party apps that do this really well. If you go to Fuzzwork, for example, you can actually pull that pre-calculated percentage price, which is super helpful. So in essence, it's that current item price question that will answer what solution you probably want to go with. And so in this case, third party wins if you go that. And before you say, well, that's kind of unfair to compare. Of course it is, because third party tools are specifically created for one purpose or a set of purposes. In case of MoCam or GIF assets or Fuzzwork, a lot of that has market trading in mind. So naturally, in a lot of these situations, third-party apps are going to win out. But that's okay. For the middle one, you don't need to do no coding at all. So that's the big advantage of the Excel add-in. So if we look at the second type of spreadsheet, the dashboard. This is where we want to understand what is currently going on in the market. And I have a huge one of these where I being an Eve tycoon myself, I wake up in the morning, at least in my imagination. I wake up in the morning, I look at my spreadsheet, and I see this is going on in Jita, right? And I can immediately see, okay, Moon Materials down 5%. What the hell is going on there? We have to buy. We have to understand why it's going on. I have to message 5 people to see what's going on in Nullsec, what you guys are doing over there. Ship prices are exploding. This will, in the long run, make raw materials explode. I need to know where I need to invest, right? So this is the type of market dashboard. And for this, the key difference to the other sheet is the market history. So for this, we need to know the market history. And again, that is something that you can easily say, but it's very complicated if you actually explain what it is. The market history is the price and the order volume of goods over longer periods of time. And immediately, you're not talking about a market snapshot of today, which is a manageable amount of data. And even today is ridiculous. These 15-minute snapshot. If you take that 15-minute slice and you take that back into years, which is what I want to work with, then this becomes very, very, very complicated. And so it's just not it's not something that you can easily pull from one source. Now, if you don't have that market data, something like a current price doesn't really mean anything at all. Right, so you can, if you were looking at the current price of titanium and say it's 4 ISK and 95 cents, that doesn't mean anything to anyone who has not followed the price of titanium over the last 5 years and knows exactly why the price is there. So we need to understand: is this higher or lower than the yearly average or the monthly average? Why is it down there, etc.? So this is why we need market history data. The API gives you the market history. It gives you these slices for, these various slices for daily, monthly, and yearly. You can download it from there, but then you still have to do a lot of calculations on it. So just having the data it just gives you the data, essentially. It's still a massive spreadsheet to then calculate, okay, what's the volatility of this item? What is the 52-week average for that item? What's the monthly average volume for this item? And so in the API, you get all the data and you can do your own calculations. In the Excel add-in, it's actually even more complicated. You can call the market history with a formula in the Excel add-in, but then you get a huge table back as well, and then you almost have no chance of averaging out numbers over a certain column, etc. It just becomes very complicated. And that's not because it's a bad solution, it's just because this is basically the most complicated thing you can do with data in EVEOnline. And so this is where the tool I mentioned earlier comes in, mocam.dk. What he does is he takes all of that history and he pre-calculates all these KPIs for you. So he pre-calculates the volatility, the volume, the average price, and he does all of this for day, for week, for month, for year, and it's just, for people like me, it's just fantastic. So again, if you use that tool and you can pull that data into Google Sheets, your sheet's going to be a lot leaner, it's going to be run faster, and plus you don't need to know the ins and outs. Because I wager the average, like 99% of EVE players will not be able to get a useful market history out of the Excel add-in because it's just so complicated. It's good at other things, just not at that. So again, the current item price, we talked about that challenge earlier. The current order volume is something that is very easy. So if you want to understand how many rattlesnakes are for sale in the forge right now, that's something very easily you can pull that out of the API, out of the Excel add-in or various third-party tools. So you can even look it up in game. It's not very difficult. The thing that is difficult is the build cost. So the build cost is something that is kind of like the current price. It's like, what's build cost in EVEOnline? Build cost depends on what you're building, how researched your blueprint is, what station you're using, where is the station, what rigs do you have in the station, and 3-4 other things. The index cost. I mean, it's a ton of different things. So there's no way for anyone to say, oh, this item is trading under build cost. And a lot of streamers, including me, like to say that sometimes and say it's a good idea. But as long as you don't know what the build cost is for the best guy or best girl that is doing a large chunk of the market, then that doesn't help you at all. And this is, again, where the Excel add-in actually does this okay. So in the Excel add-in, you can pull in a lot of these variables into the sheet, but you have to build the sheet yourself, which in itself is quite complicated. So if you had someone's template, then I think it would be a viable solution. From the API, you get all the raw data, so you can actually pull a blueprint with all the. So this is how I used to do it in the old days, where I used to pull in the static data of all BPCs in New Eden, right? And then you actually look at all the items that go into it, and then you can use that to make calculations on your own in Excel. But then again, for 99% of people, this is going to be way too much. So that's why what EVE Cookbook did is so great. That is being able to call with one formula in Google Sheets, call the build cost based on variables that you just tack on. I'm using T2 rigs in a Raitaru, in this system. So you can actually send all those variables with, and you get the exact cost back. And that is important to see, because if you're trying to understand the EVE economy, it's actually very important to understand the build cost of things and why certain items keep being traded under build cost and why. So for the dashboard, again, no surprise, yes, the third-party tools win out, but mostly due to market history and the build cost being such complex beasts. The last sheet is the opportunity sheet. So this is where you're saying, okay, if I want to get my feet wet in market trading, I want to understand how this works, I want to maybe do some profitable trades, then how do you how do you go about that? And so for this, it's a lot of the same. The only difference that you probably want here is regional pricing. So for opportunities, a lot of times what people mean by finding opportunities in EVEOnline trading is buying in one region and selling in the other, because that's I think the easiest thing to understand to make a trade. And there are thousands of these profitable trades out there because hauling, all right? Because hauling is a ridiculously stupid thing to do in terms of risk and reward, risk of reward formula. But there are differing opinions about that. I'm just using my stage to bring that message out there. I don't understand why people it's way too risky for the rewards that you get. But because that risk is out there, regional trading can be very profitable. And so if you're building a sheet like this, again, you can get regional prices from everywhere. But I would argue that the lowest price in rents has no meaning to me at all. Not because rents sucks, but because it doesn't. But because we need the percentage price, right? And once you're talking about 5% of the market volume being the relevant type of thing that, or the relevant data point that you want to get at, then you're landing with third-party apps again. And if you're talking about 5% of the market volume of rents, is still irrelevant, by the way. All right. How do we run effective sheets? So if we've put all of that together, we've taken all the data and we've put it all in our spreadsheet. What can we do to make it run well? And this is very important because when you see things like Eve API servers crashing or third-party tools crashing, it's because there are crazy people like me every once in a while that pull just too much data and aren't they're trying different things and they're not doing this efficiently. And so when you pull data, make sure that for one, you have some sort of manual trigger. So I know a lot of times if you have a spreadsheet, you open it up and it automatically pulls all the data in. For some third-party developers, this is a nightmare, right? Because every time you're opening the sheet, and this might be several times a day, it's just pulling everything in. So make sure you have some sort of manual trigger. I learned that very quickly because there are limits, for example, in Google Sheets that you can pull external data in if you don't have a professional account. So if you don't want to get to those limits, then you have to do that. Also, I've learned to have one central data sheet where I pull all my data in, and then I use that data for other specific sheets, right? Because it's easier if you just decide, okay, this is the data that I need, and I'm going to pull it into one sheet that is the master sheet for that, that I use on that day, rather than having 5 different sheets, one for industry, one for, as a dashboard, one to identify opportunities, and you pull the same data from the same people every single time, it's going to be an issue. And then something that I feel very strongly about, and I already said this last year, is then limit yourself to a relevant set. And I have this discussion all the time. Data scientists will say, only all data is good data, right? But you can be efficient about it. You can say, okay, we really don't need to look at every single item in EVEOnline, because honestly, 80% of the items in EVEOnline never get traded in any relevant volume. So when we're talking relevant items, there are 40,000 items in EVEOnline, all right? And I showed this slide last year, so I'm going to go through this rather quickly. There are 1,500 items only that have a trade volume of 1 billion ISK a day or more. And the reason I'm saying that this is relevant is because this doesn't mean that this is only for people that are investing billions. No, this is total trade volume in the forge of 1 billion. So if you're one of those traders, if you will never own this full market in JITA. If you're only one of those traders, then even 50 million or 100 million invested in this item is relevant. So really, we're talking about a small relevant set. If you break that down to 5 billion ISK per day, you're only talking about 400 items. And for me, typically, because I invest 4 trillion, this is the relevant set, 400 items. So my spreadsheet has like 1,500 items, so it's more the green box right there. But I certainly don't pull data on 40,000 items because that would just kill my sheets, kill the third-party apps that I'm working with, and the environment on the probably also. And then we have, last time I went through this in detail. I'm not going to do this today, but like if you're just wondering, like what's in that box, like what are things that are in there, it's really all these things that you see here, and it's a lot of raw materials that build up into ships. It's plex and injectors and extractors, because those are the 3 biggest trade items in Eve. It's some structures, although they are expensive but move very slowly. Some of the most popular ships, but a lot of ships not even, because a lot of ships are not very popular and they don't move. Just to give you an idea, so this is the breakdown of the Forge. The Forge right now is trading at about 14 trillion a day. And this is the 50% I'm talking about. So if you take the daily trade volume in JIDA, which is 90-something% of the Forge, it's Plex, injectors, and extractors. So it's it's Plex and Plex adjacent items that take up 50% of that volume. So that is why you hear a lot of speculators, investors talking about investing in Plex, and that's why when you have something like what I like to call Plexageddon, or what we had in June about a 2-for-1 extractor sale, that's why people like me go absolutely crazy about stuff like that, because it's liquid, right? If you're buying extractors for cheap and you can sell them later without problems because it's a very liquid item, then that's one of the best opportunities in EVEOnline. And so you've got modules. You've got ships, you've got raw materials, you've got basic minerals, commodities, and then it just gets small, right? And then you have all of that other stuff. Most of that other stuff is also blue loot and red loot, because loot you get from abyssal space or from wormhole space that you sell back to NPC buy orders, and that is essentially not really part of the market either, because it has nothing to do with player build items. It's really just an ISK faucet that is pumping ISK into the system. So very significant, but it's a big chunk of other that doesn't really have a lot to do with the market. All right, sheets in action, examples of some opportunities that you can identify with this. So you can always look at items that are trading below yearly average. That's what I do in a lot of cases. I look at the total market. I look at what's trading below the 52-week average, because a lot of things in EVEOnline are cyclical, right? So moon materials, typically the way it goes, unless CCP fiddles with it, I'm not pointing at anyone in particular over here. I can't see. It's just lights. I can't see anything. I promise. Moon materials, right? Outside of scarcity, which is a word we don't utter around here, they are expensive. Everyone goes mining them. They put them on the market. They crash the market. They become cheap. Nobody mines them anymore. You buy them all. People start mining them again, and it's a cycle, right? And people like me that have a lot of patience and a lot of ISK can just ride that cycle, and that's why trading stuff below yearly average is very relevant, right? It doesn't work when there are patches and things that are significantly changing, right? So right now, for example, if you looked at my dashboard. And you look at, okay, what are the most interesting opportunities? It will tell you, buy freighters, because freighters right now they're trading 20% below yearly average. But you have to know in June, I think it was, when the BPCs were changed for a lot of these freighters. So if you don't know that, you can't blindly follow your spreadsheets, or you're going to lose a lot of money. But still, below yearly average is a good indicator of finding good items to trade in. Below build cost is another, and for all the reasons that I just explained on the build cost side, but you have to be aware of these LP stores that are out there that will just make a build cost completely irrelevant. Because if you can build I think it's a Macarial right now that is completely messed up, or that has been messed up for possibly years. You can build a Macarial, I think, but it doesn't make any sense, because you can also trade an LP for a Macarial in the LP store. If the LP is too cheap, or if people generate too much LP for various reasons in EVEOnline, people might be sitting on a ton of LP, then they will crash the price, and creating a Macarial from a BPC will never make any sense. So if you're trying to find items that are building, and you have the greatest spreadsheet out there that identifies the items that are trading below build cost, you have to be aware of LP stores. I like to trade in items that are low in supply. So I daily monitor those 1,500 items that I deem relevant in EVEOnline, and I look at which ones are dangerously low in supply, because sometimes you will see certain ship types, you will see certain materials that will just, you will see them over weeks, they will slowly dwindle in supply, and at some point the price is just going to explode. And if you can identify those items, that's a very, very powerful trade in EVEOnline. And this happens with moon materials, with even minerals. You'd be surprised. Last week, Noxium, right? Noxium is one of the basic minerals. It got in JITA, there was less than one trade day available. That means that there was less Noxium in the markets than is traded in the markets in one day. And Noxium is not a very dynamic thing, that people can generate vast amounts of. Yes, you can find the guy or the girl that has a stockpile of this and can throw it onto the market at a moment's notice. But I typically know those people that can do that. So that's another interesting thing. Increased trade volume. I also monitor what is trading just a lot, right? So is there an event going on where people are using a specific ship, or where are people? Is there an event where people are get some drops that are usually not dropping and then usually crashing the prices? Because 90% of players will not care about the market price, right? They will loot at an event and dump it on the market, crashing the price. And if I'm there taking advantage of that, then I can make a good trade. Future price increases. So, for example, as I mentioned that earlier briefly, if you have a ship that is very popular, or even better, certain modules that are in fleet compositions right now, then you can have a look at it and say, okay, we saw a dwindling supply in this good. The prices are through the roof. Likely, if there are materials that go into it that are not abundant, not raw materials or moon materials, but maybe a salvage good or something that is rarer than that, then you can speculate on those raw materials going into the finished goods and increasing in price. And then I just like items that have a high volatility. So I calculate the volatility over items that go up and down a lot, just because buying low, selling high is really all you need to know. So if you know these cases, you can work backwards from that case and then build a spreadsheet to fulfill one of these goals that you have in trading, or if you're good, then 3 or 4 of them. All right. Questions? That was good. That was fast. We have 7 minutes for questions. I didn't expect that. Perfect. Yes, please. And I really can't see you. I'm sorry.
Volatility. What measures of volatility do you use?
Yeah. So there's basically a standard deviation that you can look at for item price, and typically I look at price much more than volume, right? It's because volume volatility is it's interesting, but it's much harder to work with. So a standard deviation over the price over a year or a month is typically a good thing to go. I don't. So the MoCam tool that I mentioned, he has several KPIs already pre-calculated for volatility, which is amazing. So anyone that is interested in that, I can just send to mocam.dk, because he's really the best solution for that. Other questions?
Yes, sir. What are some of the typical cycles, the easily observed cycles that we see, weekly or perhaps monthly or annually? And as a follow-on, or perhaps whether it's interesting or not, is there any utility to perhaps expanding to multi-year trends?
I'll answer the second question first, because I'm always most tools in EVEOnline look at the past year, and to me that is an incredibly limiting thing to do, and even a lot of APIs or third-party tools. And like, if we're talking about market history, 1 year is really nothing. We're talking about a 20-year-old game, especially with basic minerals. There's so much to learn from the cycles that mineral prices went through various wars and expansions. So definitely a limiting factor, and I would whenever I can, and that's why I like Adam Foreve, because he has the longer part of that. Typical cycles. There's the super easy ones, like back in the day we had, up until this year we had events. I'm going to get thrown out. Storyline events are also great. We had the Gurus, we had the geckos, the gecko blueprint dropping from an event. It was very predictable. It was kind of like the Capsuleer Day Society of Conscious Thought. The easiest trade in EVEOnline is buying the Praxis when everyone got a Praxis. Now I heard you get them on Twitch drops this weekend also, but the cyclical, I think, event-driven items, but only the ones that are really popular. So there's a lot of trash, right? A lot of trash, but like gecko blueprints, Praxis Gnosis Synesis, those are really interesting. The agency boosters, those are my favorite. If you watch my stream, I talk about them all the time, because agency boosters are not created in game. They're only dropped in events, but they're so popular that the Pyrolancia boosters, they go from, some of them have 10 billion trade volume. So if you have enough capital and you just vacuum them all up when they're dropping, and you can wait 3-4 months, then you make a lot of money. So those are, I think, the most common cycles. Any other questions? Yeah. We're gonna go there because you already had one, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, Frank. I'm just spreading the love.
With regard to a portfolio,
yeah.
how do you define diversification?
Yeah, he's loud. I'll repeat the question. How do I define diversification? So first of all, what I always tell people, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, don't trade into an item more than 10% of the daily trade volume. So when you have a ships are terrible, by the way. When you have a moon material that trades at 1 billion a day, if you don't know, if you're getting your feet wet, if you're trying to understand how the market works, don't buy more than 100 million at a time, because you don't want to get stuck with it if there's a lull and you don't want to have all your capital tied up. So what I always tell, I have something called 0 to Omega, where I just start from 0 on, and what I tell people is pick 10 items, but don't invest more than 10% of the daily trade volume in there. Now, what does it mean for me, diversification? With 4 trillion, I showed you there's only about 400 items that I deem relevant. So out of the 4 trillion right now, I have 1.5 trillion in skill extractors. That's terrible diversification, but it's also the trade of a lifetime, because in June, we had 2-for-1 extractors, and I bought at 320 million a piece, and they are at 460 million today, and I haven't sold a single one. So I'm going long. Thank you, CCP. There's one right there.
I just want to thank you for a great presentation, and last year's was like a shit, so you're doing good.
Thank you.
I noticed that in your pie chart, do you put rigs on the modules in the pie chart? Like slide 3 or 4.
Yep.
And then,
Too many animations.
Yeah, and the follow-up question, this is more for the bottom scrapers that like looking up here and there. Do you feel like the size of modules on the material you buy matters, where you just do station 3? Like
The size of you mean small, medium, large?
Yeah.
I don't look at the size at all when I'm doing trading. No, I look at trade volume and trade volatility. So I look at I end up trading in a lot of capital modules and dead space modules, because that's just where the volume is. because for me, if I buy a module that costs 500,000 ISK, it takes so much time to buy and sell, and the profit potential is not there, so that I end up just going into the largest, most expensive ones. But in terms of modules, I think 90% of modules I invest or trade in are dead space modules, because that's where the volume is. There's about 200 billion a day traded in JIDA on dead space modules, which is about as much as raw moon materials. So it's massive. Dead space modules are massive.
So I'm also guessing that you don't have any contracts for hauling stuff and things like that.
I don't ever haul. I only let other people haul for me, for a set reason that the risk reward equation is ridiculous. But what I do right now with the 4 trillion that I do, I have stopped going outside, because really JIDA is 85% of the markets, and so if you want to go and move large sums of money, even I try to go to the Dixie, I try to go to Amar. It's just the market gets too small very quickly. But that's obviously a first world problem. For anyone else, it's not really a problem. Yeah. So it's fine. That's just a problem I run into. But that's why I trade in JIDA. That's why I look at JIDA. Okay.
The after-hours trade doesn't make sense because of the volume. As in, it's too small for you, so to speak.
Correct. Yeah. Although, if you watched Eden Trade's presentation at 11 this morning, what he does is he takes, he buys in JIDA at sell and then ships it to 17 market hubs and sells it there, making 40% profit. That makes a lot of sense. Also, but that was with 18,000 orders or something like that. And I have a wife and I have kids, so I can't do that anymore. And a job, but hey. I started my career as a stock trader. I then moved into controlling, and then I spent 10 years in management consulting, and now I manage a data company. But it's not that far away from. It's not coincidental. No.
Would you work with somebody else to potentially expand your?
No. I'm very surprised that Eden said this morning that he's working with someone now. I cannot. I literally have almost 5 trillion in money from other people, and so I can't give anyone else the key. If that would be. Unless I wanted to end up in the news one day. And I wouldn't share that spotlight with anyone. I would take that myself.
From the get-go, you can't leave the money.
I said last year I might run away. This year, next year. I'm still having a good time. I'm making money on Twitch. Yes?
So, I'm sure this happens to tons of people, but when you're trying to offload stuff that you've invested in,
yes.
If you're trading at 10% of the market volume, there's another 90% that are trying to sell just lower than you
yes.
to offload their stuff.
Yeah.
What tactics can you give about how to actually offload the stuff you're investing in?
I always tell everyone, stop undercutting. Set your price and go outside and enjoy life. If you're trying to undercut people sell orders, you're going to be a bitter person with a long beard, if you're male, and you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out of trading. So I don't do that anymore. I do swing trading, but less margin, so I make less profit. So the 40% that Eden Trade does, no way, right? I'm moving in like the single-digit profit percentages here, but I'm having a much better time. So my suggestion would be don't try to undercut it. Yeah.
Do you deal a lot with implied correlations between non-directly related items, so like Battleship, don't break it down as materials, but if this Battleship trades other things trading alongside of it?
So the question is, do I invest a lot on correlations between, let's say, a battleship that is going up in price and the materials on it? And so the ships are one thing where that doesn't really all work that well, because there's with ships, it's everyone's dream in EVEOnline to build a ship, and so everyone builds ships, and everyone sells them under cost. So it's like trading in ships is just terrible, right? So I stick mostly with raw materials. What I do trade on is more the macro stuff of there's a patch that fixes capital ships, whatever that means. I'm being very vague for a reason. So it fixes capital ships, and all of a sudden, people are actually flying them again because they're not afraid of losing them. That is something where raw material prices are going to, as a whole, really going to go up because production is going to ramp up. That's more the stuff that I speculate on, not the single rattlesnake that is popular this week, because I'm going to be late and it's going to be not worth it. I think somebody's going to throw me out because it's, yes. Okay, last question. Go ahead. Sorry.
So when you pull all your data in, do you have any particular visualizations or formatting you find helpful for sorting out what's most important to look at?
Yeah, I work in Excel. I work a lot with color coding, and queries. So I pull in all the data, and I have, what do you call it? Hot zones. Heat maps. Hot zones. I'm German, by the way. Here. I work with heat maps a lot, but then also the best tool is queries. So I pull in the spreadsheets, and then I put a query on top of it that then goes through the spreadsheet and says, and I put in the variables. So I say I want items that are trading under 90% 52-week average at a higher than average volatility and under build cost. And then it pulls out the 10 items that are relevant, and then I look at those 10 items and I decide, okay, which ones of these make sense, and then I trade on that. If you have more questions, please come find me. I'm going to be here till Sunday. I'm around. Just find me, ask questions. Really sorry, but they're telling me I have to leave. I have stickers. Thank you so much. I have stickers here if you want them. I have more, but they're just. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.